Hey there guys, how are you? Welcome to a new episode of Flick Movie News, and today we're talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and the deleted after the credits scene that none of us got to see. And if you're like me, you were sitting in the theater, the end credits popped up, you kind of wake up, you shove a couple Sour Patch Kids in your mouth, and you're waiting for the after the credits scene, and then you keep waiting and waiting. And like a young boy on a sunny afternoon, waiting for his father to get home to play catch with him, but his father never shows. 10 years later, you find him in Tijuana. He has a new family now. I'm sorry, that was the best analogy I could come up with at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then the theater lights pop on, you're like, well that sucks, I wanted an after the credits scene. But a few days ago, it was announced that there actually was an after the credits scene in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but they just cut it out of the movie. In this image right here, taken from the deleted after the credits scene in Amazing Spider-Man 2, you see the same mysterious figure that you were introduced to in The Amazing Spider-Man 1. But who really gives a shit about that? Look in the background. Oh my god! It's a cryogenically frozen head of Norman Osborn. Now let's talk about what's going on in this deleted scene right here. And by the way, like or hate The Amazing Spider-Man 2, if you want my in-depth thought process on the movie, click this annotation right there. It goes to my Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie review. It's a good time. Check it out. Now if you saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you might have noticed that Norman Osborn dies in the movie, who was played by Chris Cooper. Now Chris Cooper is a phenomenal actor. And when I was watching The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was like, Norman Osborn just died. They have a great actor playing him. He had one scene in this 2-hour and 20-minute movie. That seems like a waste, but I have a conspiracy theory that he's going to return somehow, some way in The Amazing Spider-Man Part 3. Now in the Spider-Man comic books, Norman Osborn plays the arch nemesis of Spider-Man, the Green Goblin. But in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Harry Osborn kind of becomes the Green Goblin, or an incarnation of the Green Goblin. I mean, hell, you could almost call him the Hobgoblin, who cares? But I have a feeling by the third Spider-Man movie, there's somehow, some way going to turn Norman Osborn into the actual Green Goblin, and it just makes sense, and I'll explain why. The character Norman Osborn is the owner of Oscorp, and throughout the Amazing Spider-Man movies, the first one and the second one, it seems like Oscorp is the root of all Peter Parker's problems. I mean, hell, they technically killed his parents. And in my opinion, the only way to truly complete that story arc with Peter Parker / Spider-Man dealing with all those issues, all those problems in his life, is to have a final showdown with the man essentially responsible for all of those things, and that's Norman Osborn. And that seems like a pretty strong possibility at this point, seeing how they actually have his head in a freezer ready to go. And by the way, on a side note, when I die, someone please decapitate me, put my head in a freezer. Every time you go to get the ice cubes, it's like, I'll be there. Now after looking at these images taken from the after the credits scene, my big question is, why was it deleted in the first place? And I can only speculate what the answer might be, but maybe the writers and director of this movie didn't really want to put themselves in a corner where they actually have to utilize Norman Osborn in the future. Maybe they're like, yeah, we already have like 6 villains in the Sinister 6. Do we really need to do this? I don't know. That would be my guess. And with all that said, I have a question for you guys, and maybe some of you know the answer down below, or some of you have an interesting conspiracy theory on the subject. Why did they take this scene out of the movie? And if so, what do you think they're actually going to do with Norman Osborn's head? You know, I'm not quite sure. Maybe he becomes the Green Goblin, or maybe they save his frozen head until November, thaw it out, and have it for Thanksgiving. That's what I would do. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my last video. It was a movie night down in the Flick Cave. We watch a few new Blu-rays. It's a good time. There's some frozen pizza. Check it out, and I'll see you guys next time.